good morning, and welcome to VSA Capital's 5-Minute Morning Miner. And it's Friday, the 30th of May, and I'm still down here in sunny Cornwall, having had a fascinating day yesterday running around the county, visiting site visits. Morning, Paul, how are you?
All right. You say it's sunny there, so we're jealous up over here.
Well, sadly, I have to return today. It was a very quick trip. I've got root canal surgery this weekend.
Oh
But there you
dear.
go. No one needs to know about that. Now, look, actually, it's going to be a bit of a Cornish podcast because actually we've had a news, quite big news out of Tungsten West this morning. Actually, strangely, I was running around looking at a absolutely fascinating waste recycling business yesterday with various sites across the whole of Cornwall and in Plymouth. And actually, the guys had all worked for Tungsten West because they obviously have a potential aggregates business there. And so I got an awful lot of really good gossip on some of the things at Tungsten West you don't hear in an ordinary way. I have to say, though, this recycling business, by the way, was absolutely amazing. They can take what I would describe as rough earth from, say, a building site when you've got to dig it all up and you get all that complete rubbish earth. They then have an incredible process where they basically make everything reusable and get aggregates out of it, but also clay out of it and sand out of it. And so they basically get paid for taking the waste in, and then they sell all the product. A very smart business. It also comes under the umbrella of decarbonisation. So huge potential. It's a private company, but I think you may be hearing more about that from me because it's very, very interesting. And throws off cash. Talking of which, one that doesn't, Tungsten West. So, Paul, why don't you just talk through what this announcement said, make it fairly brief, and then we can just make a few comments on it on top.
Yeah, sure can. Tungsten West released a new economic plan for the redevelopment to restart the Hamerden, Devon, UK tungsten mine. This is ahead of a DFS completion and release, would be intended the DFS to give the details of how this plan would then be delivered. So that is the cautionary thing here, subject, of course, as I say, to the DFS being released for details. But the plan is to restart Hemerton such that the plant will have a capacity to produce about 20% of Western global supply in primary tungsten outside of the People's Republic of China. And I think that's the key point to highlight here. It has an estimated capex here in this statement of US 93 million, essentially to change out some of the equipment there and to further mitigate any possibilities for low frequency noise, which was a community issue back in the past on this site. Otherwise, 29% is the intended internal rate of return, with base case 11-year life, but the intent to have enough drilling in front of it that it would put it into multi-decade production rate. And I would just say one of my comments is the capacity to be at 3.5 million tons of ore per annum. The processing rate would suggest to me that it wouldn't be just the Hemerden mine itself which would be supplying this plant, but probably it would act as a toll facility as well for other mines around Devon and Cornwall, is my view.
Well, your view there is absolutely correct. Actually, the grade of some of the tin and tungsten at some of the other exploration sites, and obviously, the two that we know quite well are Tamar Resources, which was the merger we put together between Godolphin and Tectonic. And of course, at Redmoor Strategic Minerals, they have very high grade, and it's only 30 minutes from Hemerden. Very easy drive over the Tamar. They have much higher grades, and they will need process. So I mean, there's plenty of resource they'll be able to use. I mean, in many ways, Tungsten West is two businesses. It's a process business, and it also has a mine. The process business, if they never get it going, and of course we have been talking about getting it going since we did the IPO and raising £40 million back in 2001. We've been talking about it getting going for some time. I actually think they are making progress now, and of course the tungsten price is significantly higher. It's through $400 in America. It's trading at $450. I think it could go to $500 at those levels. Frankly, anybody can make money out of tungsten. The problem, of course, that this company faces is, number one, it's got to get financed. Now they're very hopeful about the finance. We've got to see. I have to be careful what I say here. I do know who they're talking with. there are other people out there actually who are very interested in tungsten, and obviously we speak to a lot of them. That's what I was doing in America the other week, talking to a lot of people about tungsten. But it's not quite as easy said as done. Look, I am a shareholder, I'm a bondholder, and do bear in mind the bonds basically control this company. The equity is not worthless, but if it's 5% of the company, it's probably done quite well. So please be careful if you're looking at trading the equity. There's still a lot of work to be done here. They've got to get the money in. They've actually still, although they've got their environmental agencies, I mean, it was interesting running around with these guys yesterday, hearing some of the gossip that's coming out on the local views on some of the issues that have been going on at Hemerdon and have, should we say, caused some issues in the local environment. There's a lot of work to be done cleaning all of that up, and it really does need what I describe as a real local to go and talk to the locals and say, look, actually we're all on the same side, because this plant should get back into operation. It will be fantastic for the Devon and Cornwall economy. It will be fantastic for jobs, but you've got to make people understand it and get close to them and work with them. So I'm very hopeful this will happen. I think it's very exciting. I think things are now starting to work the right way. Tungsten is a critical metal. To be honest with you, the UK government should be really helping this happen. But just a few caution marks there. Clearly, we've also got Cornish Metals, worth just mentioning them, because they actually are much better funded. They've got the National Wealth funding. They've got Sir Mick Davies of Vision Blue. But they've also now, the Red River is no longer the Red River. The dewatering has gone really well. Their plans to get that back into production actually, they could have both happened at the same time. Who knows? Time will tell. But there is actually a very exciting opportunity starting to brew up in Cornwall. We've talked about it for years and years and years. The CEO of this company I met yesterday said, Andrew, people have been talking about mining in Cornwall ever since I grew up, so to speak. It's been going on for so long. And I said, well, I actually do think it's going to happen. He went, yeah, that's what they say every year. I do think it's actually going to happen. It won't be in 2025. But 2026, I think things can start to get really excited. And there is just so much resource down here. So that actually one of the other interesting plays, obviously, and we're slightly biased, is to play it through the exploration companies such as Tamar Resources and Strategic Minerals. You've also got Cornish Tin, but of course they're private and done through crowdfunding. And they have a valuation of like 10 times the other two. And yet their resource, I think, is not as good. But again, time will tell. They've all got good resources, by the way. It's just about how good. Anyway, do you disagree with any of that, Paul?
Not necessarily. No, that sounds pretty succinct in my view.
Sorry, I rather took over the 5-minute morning miner there. Sorry, we've gone on for 7 minutes. We'll call it a day there. I've got to drive back to London. I've got to go and see another mining company back in London later today. So we'll be back next week. Thanks.
Very good.
This podcast has been produced and edited by VSA Capital. It is intended for information purposes and not as investment advice. The information is intended for recipients who understand the risks associated with equity investments in smaller companies. Please do your own research and do not rely on a single source when making an investment decision. VSA Capital may derive fees from this content and seeks to do business with the companies mentioned.